All right, we'll talk about the pleasures of the knight.
Hey, trying to learn?
I constantly hear players arguing over the relative values of bishops and knights, which is really the stronger piece. The majority of voices point to the bishop as the superior entity. The following quote from Capablanca is particularly pointed. Here's what he has to say. The weaker the player, the more terrible the knight is to him. But as a player increases in strength, the value of the bishop becomes more evident to him, and of course there is, or should be, a corresponding decrease in the value of the knight as compared to the bishop. I think I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's look at an example. That's right. This will be from 1936. Capablanca, as mentioned, as white against Sammy Reshevsky. Old Sammy.
Capablanca's white.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Lady Buell, how's it going? And I don't even think I officially said hey to you, Pam. But hey. I agree with that, Pam. My pre-moves are typically horrible. You saw how I hung a queen with one of mine, but it did work out.
Yeah, you definitely pre-moving's a lot like, you have to predict them a little bit.
Yeah, I start panicking because I don't do it often enough.
All right, so like I said, this is Capablanca against Reshevsky from 1936 Nottingham, that's a famous tournament, Nottingham 36.
Mm-hmm.
It's black to move. So you might, first notice that this bishop's pretty bad. If nothing changes on the white squares there. Note that the holes on b4, c5, and d4, plus there's a weak pawn on d5. If black plays normally, like this, that's what you normally do in the endgame, white will achieve a nice position. Like this, for example. Here to stop the king from coming up. But then knight c2 to d4. Knight c2, king c3, knight d4, king c3, king b4. White will pretty much win that out of hand. So black can try to avoid that position, though. In fact, he does this by making use of his bishop's long-range powers, by creating an outside passed pawn on the king side. g5 exclam. Great move by Reshevsky.
Hey, Jen.
Go banning people over there, according to Ralph. Just wondering. So g5's exclam. So his idea is that he's going to play h4. And then he's happy to have a bishop because the bishop can help the pawn push and can also try to attack these pawns if it is a bishop, so it can do two things. Or it's going to be tougher for the knight to handle both sides of the board. Knight b4. Capablanca avoided f4, gf, ef due to d4 exclam, opening up the bishop. Black would eventually lose this pawn. It's true. But his active bishop will give him serious chances to save the game. Capablanca being one of the greatest endgame players ever, he's going to give himself the most chances.
So you said he went g5 because he's going to push the h pawn?
Yeah, he's going to make a pass pawn here. h4, h5. h5, h4.
What, couldn't they just stop that with the preemptive g4?
They totally could. It's a good point.
He must know that they won't do that for some reason, but I don't know what.
Well, you could play that move, and that's something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Hey, Ogama MD.
Yeah.
All right, well, onward.
Oh, yeah, he played knight b4, but we can come back to that.
Yeah, I was
maybe.
just curious.
Because that does seem like an interesting move to me.
Because that kind of thing where you're thinking that far ahead.
Well, you know what? I'll show you what happens. He hits the bishop, so
yeah.
They takes here, and he can't take the bishop because he's going to queen. And now he plays g4. Yeah, exactly right. So you had the right idea.
Oh, okay, did go there.
Yeah, he just hit with the tempo first.
I see.
Not much of a difference. White prevents black's plan and now intends to swing his king over to d4. That would be good. With total control. Refusing to die passively, black realizes his only counterplay is based on the h5 advance. So king g7 to g6, h5. So he even loses the d pawn. What are you going to do about it? But his king is pretty good now, is black's king.
Yeah.
So at least he got something going as compensation for the pawn. How's it going, Ogoma? Not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but try my best.
Yeah, I just said it. Said it the same way.
Black has lost a pawn, but his active king and the limited remaining material gives him some practical chances to save himself. Nevertheless, white should win with best play. f4, best move. g4. Black loses if he tries to win this pawn. Like that. That's going to lose, obviously. He could even try to take and go here. Both sides queen, but we've seen this scenario before. We force the trade. And white wins. So he can't take the knight. He just goes here immediately. Going to queenton. And then bishop c8. Still trying his best. Far worse is bishop c6 to go here to stop the pawn, because then knight c7 stops the bishop from going there. And then we'll queen it. For example, well, okay, this is queening with check, right?
Hey, Sinbad, how's it going?
Okay, so he plays bishop c8. e4. Now knight c7 is not as good. But we saw that idea last time. But here it's not quite as good because bishop takes f5 exclam. Queen, pawn's pretty quick. And knight's kind of far away. This is the problem with having a knight. You know, if it's a bishop and it's here, he can do nothing. Controls it automatically. Let's see how this variation goes. King f3, knight e6, g3, knight f4. But we can take here. And now we're not going to lose with black. Indeed, you only have one pawn left, and I'm going to go take it. You can't stop me from taking it with the knight, because I'm going to queen then. So your knight can't do both things. It can't stop this and protect that.
Mm-hmm.
So now knight c7 won't work. However, Silman says it's not clear how e4 is really necessary, which is what Capablanca played. More straightforward is f6. That's probably what I would have done, even though I never play f6. Here, to play f7, king h4. If king f3, king e7, bishop h5, knight f4, g2, f7, queen, queen, check. Again, queening with check. Queen f5 with an easy win. Yeah, it does seem like a win. I wish we could play queen jumping over to win it already, though. That would have been better.
It's cold. Can you turn?
Turn it back up.
Yeah, we'll
Even more.
remember at the end. Turn it back on. Okay, thank you.
King h4. So instead of king f3, that's the variation we just looked at. King h4, king e7. Bishop here. This is pretty similar so far. Now he's going b4. Interesting move. Sort of a Zugzwang kind of move, yeah.
Hey, Gerard. How's it going?
King g4. Got a queen. Well, knight f6 check. Let's save our knight first, right? And then we can queen. So we're still up a knight. Okay, it's going to take some work, but it should win. What's nice is the queen defends this and even can potentially defend that. So you can't, like, check and take my pawn. Even queen d4, knight d5. Or queen b6, king d5. Are hopeless for black. Yeah, I mean, it's up a knight, so it should win. Just takes a little bit of time because queens check a lot. So f6 wins by force. Capablanca played e4, which should probably also win, I guess. Bishop e8. Trying to stop the pawn from being pushed. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Ogoma.
Yeah, I
for confirming that.
Oh, yeah, that you said it right. Yeah, Gerard, I sympathize with your time pressures.
Now, Capablanca blunders. King d4 double question mark. This is the type of blunder if Magnus played it, my dad would say, "What? Magnus is the worst. How dare he ever blunder?" Blunder throws away the win. Reshevsky shows that white could still claim victory with f6. Knight f4. King f5, this to push the pawn. Check. And here, the idea is if you take, I get to push. But you can take. g2 and queen. They get to let them queen first with check. Seems bad, but we can go here and you actually can't stop us from queening.
Yeah, because there aren't any more checks.
There's one more, but then we can go there.
One. Oh, yeah.
Then there's no more checks without hanging the queen. And you can't, like, stop us from queening this way. Knight's controlling that. But yeah, this isn't working and no other checks. So f6 still was winning here. But never play f6, so he plays king d4.
Hey, Joe Adam.
Okay, now this is a draw, but it's very difficult. In the game, Reshevsky plays king f4. That's going to lose. Also losing is bishop d7 to c8. See, the idea to put the bishop here makes sense because then you can't push this pawn. I'll take it. Although if I push the other pawn, we can go here and then here. But Alyakin points out that this move wins. Alyakin always like ends the analysis when like you could continue analyzing.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say he goes here. Now I don't want to go take the bishop because he's queening with check. So we'll just take the pawn. And then we'll go here and there and win. If he stops us from going there one way or the other, I guess this is the best way. We'll go here and there and queen. He can't stop us, like he can't go there and still winning. Or if he goes here first, we can just do this. So knight f5 ends the game, yeah. I mean, we could just take the pawn if you don't go there like this and win the same way. Classic Alyakin. So bishop d7 loses. The move he played, king f4, loses. However, Reshevsky found a draw. Bishop f7, double exclam. Okay, I wouldn't expect that to draw. e7. And now king f4. See, the idea is to, well, he's not, the idea is to avoid going here and then taking. And then we'll win by bringing our king up. Like that, for example. Or that. So, king f4. Now, I mean, I'm always going to have this pawn, unless you try to take it, I guess. And your king can't run up here, because then I'll take your knight and queen myself. It takes you like 4 moves to do all that stuff. So he says that white can't even improve the position. Well, if we play knight check, I mean, taking it certainly loses. King takes, push, queen. Queen is not check anymore. And then this f-pawn's pretty strong. So probably here I would do this to try to, take the pawns if he moves his knight. And then we also still have our own pawn. So yeah, that's not going to help. Check here is not going to help white win the position at all.
Right.
Because we're going to queen. And you helped me go take your pawns. Let's see, what else could we try? Well, we could try like this knight check, but then it'll be the same scenario we saw earlier in the book with the knight and king and pawn like that. So that doesn't really help, as we know already. Also, anyways, we could just go here and try to take these pawns still. So, can't push the pawns, can't move our kings, we take the knight. So yeah, it's true that white actually can't improve the position here. I mean, I guess white could try this, but that's not going to win you the game. Right? It's not going to help. You still could go here. So bishop f7 draws, as it turns out. Yeah, so the problem is that, you can't play king here and then push this pawn, because your knight's hanging.
Mm-hmm.
So the pawns have to, work on their own, which they can't do, clearly. Difficult stuff. I wouldn't expect bishop f7 to draw. But looking at that position, it's clearly you can't make progress. So king f4. This loses now. Reshevsky's point is he just wants to jettison the pawn and take this pawn. They'll trade. Like this, but he's still left with a pawn, and now his knight and king can move. His king can step up, and his knight can help too. And this is going to be a win. King g4. Okay. And black even resigned here. Black has no defense to e7, followed by knight d5 to c7. That's going to win him the game, win him the bishop and the game. Let's try to defend, though. Alright, I already gave up, because if he goes here, we'll do that. And now your king can't approach. Again, that's the idea. And, well, there's no other, reasonable move for black, right? You can move your bishop, but that's not going to help when I go like that. So he already just resigned it. So not a perfectly played endgame, but definitely pretty instructive. Very interesting draw with bishop f7 there, I thought.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was very interesting.
Indeed.
Scottish Demon Goat says, b6 wins, queening is unstoppable.
As usual. Classic b6. The explanation for Capablanca's obvious favoritism towards bishop, while he used his knight to good effect against Reshevsky, is simple. Bishops tend to be better in a majority of cases, like open positions or past pawn races where the bishop's long-range ability can crush the knight. The knights have their own set of advantages, though. 1, they can land on light squares and dark squares. 2, they're more flexible than bishops, probably because they can go to light squares and dark squares. And 3, knights are often superior in closed positions. 4, knight hops confuse amateurs and masters alike. Silman says that he managed to draw a pawn down endgame, multiple pawns actually, and 2 knights each, against Georgy Orlov.
Mm-hmm. Hey, intelligent.
Interesting stuff.
Oh, thank you for that compliment. I know Georgy Orlov.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Not well, but I met him. Archer did his camp
yeah.
with him
That's
in Seattle.
awesome.
We were there.
I know of him. Definitely.
Nice man.
Yeah, he's a very strong IM.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely one of the strongest IMs.
His wife passed away from cancer.
Dang. I think I knew about that. That's tough. What this means is that the master has an open mind and understands that many positions are highly favorable for knights. He might prefer the bishop in a general sense, but he won't hesitate to rush into a knight versus bishop endgame if he feels that the knight is better than the bishop in that case. Our next example shows what happens when a bishop is better than knight mentality becomes set in stone. This is going to be a computer game. A computer played against Silman in 1989.
Wow.
So it wasn't the strongest computer, I guess, in 89.
Let's see.
This. Put some minor pieces on the board. And some for black as well. So Silman has black here. And it's black to play. The computer is called Mephisto computer, against Silman, 1989. At the time, computers hadn't quite made their mark at the highest level of tournament chess. This event was historic in that Mephisto did very well against several strong players, and Deep Thought dragged down Bent Larsen, and myself, being Silman, not me. Larsen didn't take the machine seriously, while Silman was introduced to the computer's incredible defensive skills in the final round. Silman says he outplayed the computer, achieving a position that would give excellent winning chances against any human, but then ran into a non-human defense while in time pressure, and he couldn't break the computer. Yeah, sort of like modern computers now. Even if you're winning, like you can't beat them, obviously. You have to be like really winning.
Yeah.
Like really, really winning. Though my loss to Deep Thought was traumatic and costly, I managed to uphold... Oh, he actually ended up losing, I guess, that game. I managed to uphold the integrity of the human race earlier in the same event against Mephisto. The game was a long, grueling affair that demanded accurate play and a tremendous amount of energy. Silman managed to win a pawn and begin a long cat-and-mouse process, like how we talked about earlier, you know? In this position, Silman played bishop a4.
Now, real quick, we talked about the Norway match earlier. I haven't gotten to see a lot of it, just sort of peripherally, but I've been following it enough to know that Fabi's doing well. I like that nickname, Fabi Marijuana, because he looks like a marijuana smoker, although I suspect that's a very rare event.
And his name sounds like it, too.
That's true.
How convenient. It was here that I discovered a glitch in the machine. Any experienced human would understand the tremendous flexibility of a knight in such position. But the machine was programmed to believe that bishops are better than knights. So he just played here. Terrible defense, and then takes it. Wasn't going to let it change his mind. The only fly in the ointment is black's vulnerable g4 pawn. So he puts his knight on e5 to defend g4 and deprives the bishop of the d7 square. It also threatens to decisively leap in to d3, targeting f2. Or even to c4, pressuring e3 and making d4, d5 a serious pawn break to consider at the appropriate time. Because they moved around a bit here. He did do the thing. Threatening the pawn. He wanted to take. Now he's got this protected pass pawn. Okay, I must have messed it up. Give me a second here.
That's a lot of whooping and hollering next door.
Right.
At the dance studio.
Should c2. Oh, he played king back to c. They repeated. That was the deal. Always repeat. I should have figured that out. And then here. Check. Nothing is safe from the mighty knight. Haha, that's true. It chases white's king off of f2 and threatens the pawn on g3. As will be seen in the next note, it will also train its sights on f1. That will be helpful for queening the pawn. He took and did the machine. A sad necessity. Here, there. That's a good move. Thinking, couldn't he do this? But he gave this as the move, so just take his word on it. I guess, yeah, you can't stop me from queening anyway. So no reason to do a trick where now it's queen against bishop. It's easier to win queen and knight against bishop and pawn. So here he has to take, I guess. The rest is basic king and pawn endgame fair. And resigns. The edge in flexibility that a knight often has over the bishop is graphically shown in our next example between two world champions. This will be Smyslov with white against Euwe. Seen a lot of both of them already. But both are known as pretty good endgame players.
Mm-hmm.
These pawns in here. There we go. Okay, let me make sure this is correct. Looks like it's correct, though. Who knows these days? White to move. All right.
Oh, good night, intelligent.
Night, intelligent.
Night, night, sweet dreams.
So this is Smyslov against Euwe from Groningen 46. Black is in serious trouble. The reason for this is white's king is more active than black's. White's knight will dominate black's bishop. Black has potential pawn weaknesses on c7, f6, and h5. And if white plays f3 and takes, then he'll still have a g-pawn that's weak as well. And white doesn't really have any weaknesses. Well, maybe g3 if you play f3, he says. Black has far more weak pawns than white. In general, two knights don't work well together. However, in this case, black's knight is dominated. That's true, it can't move without at least trading, right? And then we won't have two knights.
So I didn't even really know that. So in general, two knights don't work well together?
I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, when compared to, like, two bishops.
I mean, I've heard Ben say something about this superfluous
That's this.
knights, but
the
yeah,
knights are protecting each other.
but
like
I guess
that, yeah.
I wouldn't have really realized that in general they don't work well together. So that's interesting.
Yeah, well, you could compare it to other, like, obviously two rooks work better together.
Yeah,
Two knights,
not as
double.
clumsy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else? The c3, c4, c5 pawn lever, this pawn break, allows white to break through on the queen side in different variations. Correctly handling the knight takes more skill than correctly handling a bishop. As a result, lower-rated players fear knights. In a way, mastery of knights is the test that separates the men from the boys.
Well, I will say I do fear knights because they can go so many different squares.
Mm-hmm.
I get forked all the time on knights.
At least 8. Yeah.
So that might be true.
All right, so he goes king c2, bishop e1. Smyslov analyzes bishop g5, intending to transpose to a king and pawn endgame, and shows that it loses. King b3, takes, knight e7. This is how we're getting a king and pawn endgame. But Smyslov's analysis will prove this to be lost. Which, I mean, it looks bad for black because the king is so bad anyway. Still more moves coming here. Break. Threatening to win, so he has to take. Probably king takes, I'm guessing. Just don't want to lose my place. There's a lot of moves here. It's tough.
Yeah, I know.
So he's trying to like zugzwang him here.
Yeah.
Which he did.
Okay.
Now he's got to zugzwang him again. King e7. If this is a good move, because now if he goes c6, we can get opposition. Like this. So that's why he didn't play, in this position, king c4. He wants to play king c4 if you play c6 and they trade. King c4 then. So king e7. A triangulation here. Winning. Clearly. Perhaps this is true, but Watson feels that playing f5 here is a bad move, since it later deprives the e-pawn of some much-needed protection. Instead, he recommends king d7 in this position. g3 exclam. So he's taking away, if you take, that doesn't really help white. And, well, I guess later you could play g4 and h5, but anyways, I could play f5 then and make a passed pawn. You know, takes f5.
Okay.
Makes a passed pawn by force, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So f3. Oh, he gives that variation, he says equal. But okay, anyways, white just wouldn't allow that. It doesn't matter what the evaluation is. So this is basically the same variation, but Watson kept the pawn back on f6 and didn't play f5. So now we got a similar situation. His logic is shown by the position that results from the following moves. We'll do the same like kind of triangulation. Remember that this was losing last time, but now it's not. Or with the pawn here, this is a dead loss. But here, Watson kept his pawn back here. And apparently this won't lose. Oh yeah, see? Now you can't play king takes e5. Because see, this is just a draw. Move back and forth. I guess you could try to win like this, but it should draw.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, black could just do that. Just no problem. Nice. For the boys.
I thought you'd been here before, B. Cavani. When we're done with this endgame book, we're going to get into some middle game planning.
So he plays bishop e1 instead of bishop g5. King and pawn endgame. Euwe didn't want to go into that. Smyslov thought it was winning, but Watson actually found a way to draw that. It's pretty interesting that it could draw, because his king is so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
f3. White intends to play c4, then march his king all the way down to c6, like we've already seen. Black would like to greet the white king by moving his own king to d7. So, you know, if you play c4 and move your king up, I could play king d7. And then you can't play king c6. The problem is you can't go here because we check and take your pawn. It's the problem with having all these weak pawns that black has.
Mm-hmm.
Black has no choice but to exchange a pair of knights. Now he's got a weak g-pawn. Now you can't just go and take it because your g-pawn's hanging too. Remember, white does have one weak pawn, as we discussed previously.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Anubis. How's it going?
Black desperately seeks counterplay on the king side, trying to defend passively like this. I guess that he's going to take this. Is that really true? And then go here? I guess. I can't see because it's on the next page.
Oh, bold move.
Yeah, I think that is what he's going to do.
Hey, Cat.
Sorry, I was just going to say, what else is the point of that move?
Yeah, I was
You got to
wondering
take
that.
it.
Yeah, that seems crazy, though. Hey, Katsorium from France.
Nice. Oh, one of your favorite openings.
Bonsoir.
Bon nuit. Although it's not nighttime there. I think bon nuit means good night. I'm not 100% sure. So let's say he plays king f7 and tries to defend more passively. Oh, I got a ton of variations here, so hold your hats. Hold on to your hats. So again, this is what he wants to try to stop king c6, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give me that pawn. A little trade.
Give me that pawn, yeah.
Now this is hanging, so you should go here. You know, if you defend with your king, it lets me go into c6 anyway. So it wouldn't really be logical. We can go back to f5. So now white can spend all the time in the world to win this position, if it's winning. Trying to get in here. Good king.
Yeah. Good king, unless there's there were a breakthrough or something.
Right. But yeah, black's got nothing cooking.
Yeah,
So he can do whatever he wants.
That's true.
Now he can actually start to approach. According to Smyslov, this wins. I think Smyslov ended the analysis here, just said wins. I guess Smyslov's point is I'm going to take the pawn. Let's verify this. The knight in this variation dominates both the bishop and the king. Dang, pretty tough. So here, this seems like the only defense, yes. Because now if they go here, you can defend.
Right, yeah.
So instead, knight c6. Check. That's the point of knight c6, so now we can approach with our king. Nice, get our king in there. Knight a6. Still try to break, I guess. Also, I would like to get my knight here, even though that's pretty difficult, but we can try. And then if you play bishop b6, I can play knight takes d6 exclam. Heh, got you. Could get got there. Let's see if that's what he does. No, he doesn't do any of that. He goes here. And now, if bishop d4, knight here wins, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Attacks the pawn, and you defend it. I take that pawn. Bishop e3, knight d7, bishop g5. Okay, it looks like we got it all defended for now, right? But after here, knight e6 is decisive. You can't defend your pawn. You're not in time because it's a check. Take the pawn next. Okay, here's the toughest defense, king e7. Knight d7 threatening the bishop, so bishop a5 has to defend the pawn. Break. Bishop b4. If dc, knight takes, bishop b6, knight b7, king f7, d6 anyway. The whole point of knight b7 is to play d6. King f7 avoided with check, but even still it's crushing because you can't let me queen, but you can't take and lose your guy. I'll even take this check maybe. No, just take your guy. Just take your guy because takes check king e6. King e6 would be tough. So instead of dc, bishop b4. Now it's a trade. It looks like maybe black's got something going. Maybe. Knight b8 exclam. Now if you push your pawn, you get forked, and I take your bishop, and I stop your pawn. Got him. Knights are pretty fun when they're working out like that. I would guess c4, yes. Oh, now it threatens the fork again. And you don't have time to queen your pawn either. I stop you by one tempo. And wins. But you don't have a choice. Well, I guess you could resign because this is a fork and you can't lose your pawn. That would be game over, down a pawn then.
Yeah.
So passive defense won't hold, as Smyslov said, although he didn't give all of this variation. Variation's like 20 moves on. Instead, king g5 is what Euwe played? I already forgot who's playing this. Yeah, Euwe played king g5, so he's trying to take, I suppose. And that is what he does.
Do you want a sweet tea or Coke? I'm going down there.
I'm actually good right now. Thank you, though.
Bishop g3 is the only chance, and it's the only idea of playing king g5. Otherwise, white's just going to go take this and take everything. So at least it's a little messy. Knight e8 exclam. White's super knight goes in the opposite direction, seeking a quick lunge. I guess these guys. Before dealing with the e-pawn. Nice. e2 forked.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, actually, he went like this. Same idea.
Yeah, I would agree. Be Cavani.
What did he say? Something fun? Oh.
That the knight's better king's friend than the bishop.
Yeah, that is one benefit of the knight, but it is a lot slower.
That's true. But wouldn't you consider, like when the pawns are like that, it's a closed position?
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess in a closed
That's
position,
better, right, for the knight.
Knights are better.
Certainly. Yeah, that was one of the points that he said.
Mm-hmm.
King f4. Knight c3. And resigns. He's just going to make a queen now. An impressive endgame that shows that just how light on its feet a knight can be. It's true. He did jump around quite a lot in the last few moves. All right, one final example gives us more fancy hoof work by the knight instead of footwork. I get it.
Silman's writing style is kind of funny.
I liked hoof work.
Yeah. A little humor for us.
Some knights in here. This will be almost pretty much middle game at this point. So we even put rooks on here after these bishops. Like this. All right. White to move. Let's see, make sure it's all right.
Now, Computer Fight says, I assume there's some examples in there of the bishop dominating.
Probably. Not in this particular section, but perhaps. All right, so this is white to move. This is from Bernstein against Susman. I don't know who that is. From the U.S. Championship, 1938. White's superior pawn structure and centralized pieces makes an obvious impression. However, white has an idea here that allows him to add one more advantage to his quiver of pluses. He can create a crushing knight against bishop scenario. Snap. Exclam. And then a5 exclam, the point. Locking the pawns on white squares and weakening the dark squares for black, because now he's got to give up c5. That'll be a wonderful square for the white knight. Really good positional play by Bernstein, who is no joke. This lets white rule the position with an iron grip thanks to the holes on b4 and c5. Lovely outposts for the knight and king. Black had to try something like ba or even king b7 to increase his king's position. Because then, I mean, if he takes here, sure, you get isolated pawns, but at least you got a passed pawn. So you can try to get something going there.
Yeah.
But now this keeps it closed, which is the last thing you want with a bishop, you know. Like you were just saying.
Seems hard to save the pawn, so like if he took A, because you got these.
Oh, yeah.
Rooks can just
No,
go
that
there.
would, I mean, you would definitely win back one of your pawns, but hopefully you'd protect the other pawn and your rook behind it and just be lost. Positionally lost. Knight g4. So white forces his knight into the dream square by attacking stuff like that. And then here threatens the fork. A lot of tactics here. Now he can't even play bishop takes because of this fork. So he has to take with the pawn ugly.
Terrible.
And then here comes the knight. Here comes the knight. I say, it's horrible. Yeah, I would hate to see this. King a7. I'm guessing the next move's f5, but I'm not sure. To turn the page. Oh, he didn't do it. An experienced player will always head for a position like this. A knight this good, along with black's passive king and a target on a6, will bring home the full point almost every time. King c2. The engine wants king a3, f4, takes d5. Kind of a computer-like way of handling the situation. It's getting a little messy here. Rook e2, check, and check. Yeah. No, that'll win. Certainly. Get a past a pawn. However, Bernstein plays in a very solid sort of human way. He doesn't want to change anything because his position's so good. So you don't want to make a mess of it. He says, in fact, that Bernstein's choice is by far more human. The idea is simple. He intends to move his king to d2, swap off all the rooks, and the resulting minor piece endgame is a win for white. If black retains all the rooks, or any rooks, after king d2 takes rook e1, if you move your rook away, I'll get into e7 check, which looks pretty bad too, because your a6 pawn's going to drop. After you move your king, I take it. So yeah, this seems like the way to win. f4 check, bishop f5. So he goes rook g8. Though rook takes e1, king takes e1 is certainly losing for black, picking the right plan might be harder than one would imagine. In my view, white can make this easy on himself if he realizes he's up a king. Black's king is frozen to defend a6. All white has to do is find a way to penetrate into black's camp with white's king. For example, like this. Here we go. And now black's in Zugzwang at this point. Yeah. You can't stop me from going here unless you trade into a lost king and pawn endgame by moving your bishop and letting me take it. Or moving your bishop here and letting me take this, even worse. Although that would win too, because we just go take this. So yeah, I think that if you're defending this with black, you really don't do that, right? You got to try something else. So he tried something else. He's going to get crushed here too, but what are you going to do? That's life. Check and then back. Nice. He gains a tempo this way because now the pawn's hanging again. So he goes here. 93, give me that. Not only does this win a pawn, but it also defends g2, so now his rook is free to go. Just resigned. Well, you probably don't want the knight to go back in here, but if you take it and king takes, this is hanging, and you move it, then that's hanging, and he's already down a pawn. His king is the worst ever. And this is totally hopeless. Completely hopeless.
That seems bad. Yeah, where did you see the article, Premier Chess?
Yeah, you emailed it to me.
Well, no, I had a Premier Chess say it.
Oh, right.
Alexei sent me the link, and I thought it turned out nice. And I sent her that picture she used of Spencer.
That's me.
And Ben. So,
with my somewhat purple beard.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I thought it turned out nice, the article.
Yeah, and my beard.
And your beard.
So we still got a couple more sections of this part left, part 8. So we could probably save it for next time, though.
Yeah, let me see.
We finish this section.
Oh, okay, that's a natural stopping.
Yeah. The next time we'll look at the king. The king is the fighting piece.
All right, man, we're getting close to the end.
Definitely. But this section, this part, I should say, as well as the next part, are going to be denser than
Super
usual.
dense.